It takes more than templating out templates that template other templates to be a great software engineer. This is episode 146 of the Soft Skills Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Dance.
I'm your host and human template, Dave Smith.
Soft Skills Engineering is a weekly advice show where we answer all of your non-technical questions about the technical field of software development. And we don't talk about templates.
Nope.
Not anymore. Dave, do you want to thank our wonderful patrons?
Yes, I do. I'd like to thank this week those who are contributing at the level where they get a shout out on the show every week. Chris Hogan, the Agile Ventures Charity, Zach Grannon, David Jackson, Sean Clayton, Nick Cantar, and Sonic the Hedgehog. Thank you so much. If you'd like to contribute to the show, Jamison, tell them where to go.
Go to softskills.audio, click the Ask a... Nope. Click the Support Us on Patreon button.
Ooh, a twist.
Yeah. Pretend like it was a twist, not a mistake. And then you can do that from their wonderful website. Thanks again to everyone contributing. All right, let's just dive into the questions, I think. Do you want to read our first one?
Sure. This comes from an anonymous listener who says, "Hi guys, I was faced with quite a dilemma recently. A few days ago, one of my coworkers said he was sick and worked from home. But the next day he came to the office, constantly sneezing and looking terrible. And for some reason, he finished the day in the office. The same happened the day after that. I don't want to be rude, and I felt for this guy, but I didn't want to get sick either because I have some important tasks this week. What could I have done? I could not just tell him, 'Go home, you fool, you're contagious.' I could say, 'Hey, I notice you're not feeling very well. Why don't you come to the manager and ask to work from home this week?' But I didn't have the guts to do this. Besides, what if he couldn't work from home for some reason? I solved this by lying to my manager that I'm sick too and worked from home. What is the best solution here?"
Oh, I love this question. There's so many things. Like, okay, if you're sick, why are you working? If you're saying you're too ill, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's to make it a white lie instead of a dark black lie. Well, I don't know what the opposite of a white lie is. A bad lie instead of a good lie. But I don't know. I just think that's funny that you'd say, "I'm too sick to work, so I'm going to go home and work." I guess the question asker mentioned they have some important projects to get done.
Yeah.
I also like the "go home, you fool."
You fool. Fly, you fool.
Yeah. I feel like that's an effective tactic that doctors use sometimes. Just like, "You fool, don't get sick." Why do you think this person came in anyways? Is it just, I feel like there's an etiquette to not come in when you feel like you're contagious.
There is, but I'll tell you what, there are some companies with some really crappy incentives around their vacation and sick time. You know, like I've worked for a company where they were combined into one pool. And so taking a sick day meant taking one less vacation day.
Yeah. If I come into work, then I get to stay at Disneyland one day longer.
Exactly.
Yeah. I could see that being a strange incentive.
That's probably what's going on here.
Yeah. Huh. Or maybe they just, maybe they want to get everyone sick. Like, why would they? Maybe, okay, I read a sci-fi novel recently. It was about giant human-sized spiders that become sentient. And in the end, they have to inject all the humans or infect all the humans with this bacteria that basically makes them not terrified of giant human-sized spiders.
Okay.
So maybe your coworker has a benevolent illness that is going to, I don't know, make you keep your Jira tickets up to date or help you write better unit tests.
Make you not feel so mad when they take down prod.
Yeah. Just give you greater empathy for your fellow man.
Yeah.
And his approach to doing that is just walk over and sneeze right on your mouse and then look up at you and then sneeze right on your keyboard.
And then say, "You're welcome."
Yeah. You'll thank me later when you have the antibodies, the Jira antibodies.
Jira. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, that does paint Jira as a disease, which I think it is. So.
Yeah. So what do you do if you're worried about catching something from sick people that have come into work?
Well, I mean, you just bug out. This is like he nailed it. I'm like, well, just get the heck out of there. That place should be on lockdown, and you should not be inside.
Everybody run! There's a sick person! Flee!
Oh, you could pull the fire alarm and then slip out in the crowd.
Yeah, you need a flu alarm. One that rings all the bells but doesn't summon the fire department and waste their valuable time.
Good point. Yes, that's it. It's a little button right next to the fire alarm.
Yeah, it's Maybe it's got a moisture detector or something. And you have to sneeze on it and then trigger it. I think your point is valid. Where this seems pretty reasonable. The only weird thing is you felt like you had to lie about it and say, "Hey, I'm sick, so I'm going to work from home," instead of just saying, "Hey, I don't want to get sick, so I'm going to work from home." That, I don't know.
Yeah,
that
that's
feels
a little
like
weird.
a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah.
This is also another one of those cases. I feel like we often run into questions which are solved by having a less socially conscious person available that you can sick on the problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to say, "Go home, you fool, you're contagious." But if you have a coworker who's known for being blunt, and people are just like, "Oh, there goes Blunty, the person with no tact," then you just need to, the problem transforms into one of you convincing Blunty to tell the sick coworker, "Go home, you fool, you're contagious."
This sounds like a job for Blunty.
Yeah.
Blunty is very useful.
Blunty is very useful, and I feel like one thing I've learned over the past while in my career is it can be useful to be able to transform into, I really don't like that name, but I'm stuck with it now. It can be useful to transform into Blunty at some times. Like, it's not comfortable, you don't like it, it feels a little weird and outside of the normal bounds of etiquette, but I don't know, it's not outrageous. If they say, "I have this thing I really have to get done," then maybe you say, "Hey, try working on that from home." Like, I can think of a bunch of potential objections around why it might be awkward. Like, you also mentioned they don't have a place to work from home.
Potentially, right.
Yeah, but I still feel like this is a valid, that doesn't necessarily mean there's no way you can say anything about it ever. It just might mean the answer might be complicated, especially if you're talking to them as a peer. But if Jamison can be Blunty, that should give anyone in the world hope that they too can sometimes say things that make them uncomfortable, but feel important and are not rude.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think I would probably approach this person and ask, "Oh, geez, I don't know." Frankly, I would just keep my distance, I think. If it's multiple days in a row.
Because to ask them, you have to get close to them, right?
Exactly. I guess you could send them a message.
Yeah, send them a Slack.
Hey,
and
look.
that has the advantage of being less difficult, too.
Exactly. "Hey, look, I need to chat with you for a minute, but please just stay at your desk."
I'll just yell it from here. Yeah, I think this is a pretty clear case where it doesn't feel super risky. It might feel a little bit scary, but I don't know. I don't feel like they're likely to blow up on you. Like, what are you afraid of when you confront someone? Sometimes it's of them getting angry, or sometimes it's of being wrong.
Or them sneezing in your face.
Yeah, or literally dying of a disease. But I feel like a lot of those concerns I don't see how they necessarily apply to this situation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the risk here, I think, is that you'll hurt someone's feelings or reveal something about their personal life that they don't want to share. Like, I live somewhere.
Yeah, maybe it's a sensitive, maybe it's like a chronic thing that they're really sensitive about. I could see that.
Yeah, like I live in a very small house with thin walls, and my neighbors are loud, and I don't know. So that's the risk, but not a huge risk. But I would probably peel this onion back one more layer and say, what incentive system prompted this person to come in who was clearly very ill and contagious, such that the rest of the team was put at risk? And that incentive system needs to be addressed, because, I mean, imagine the productivity loss if one person comes in because of a bad incentive system and ends up crippling the productivity of like 10 other people who get sick as a result.
Yeah, I think to go back to the potential sensitive issues thing, I feel like intent and communicating good intent goes a long way. So if you can make it clear, like, "Hey, I'm doing this out of concern for my health and the health of the team. I'm not mad at you or accusing you. I just want to suggest you work from home sometimes if you're feeling sick, or maybe go home so that you don't get the rest of us sick." Like, I feel like if you approach it with the right tone, then it feels less likely to explode in your face, even if there are some issues behind why they came into work. For the other part of it, I think you could also cure them.
Okay.
And then they won't be sick anymore.
All right. Like maybe some essential oils or something?
Yeah, I think that would definitely cure them of whatever the ailment is, beyond having too much money.
Yeah.
Wait, no, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
The other thing.
You have friends who sell essential oils, don't you?
No, I don't. Not that I know of. Yeah, I think maybe their humors are off.
Their internal pressures.
Maybe they have too much blood. They need to be leached.
I mean, software engineering is hard, so we're probably pretty good as doctors,
Yeah.
I mean, if we could
I was
do
gonna
this.
say it feels like witchcraft already. So it's so fuzzy and vague and full of tradition that maybe you're prepared to tackle this problem of curing diseases you don't understand.
I fix bugs I don't understand with workarounds all the time.
All we have to do is add one to their liver.
And it looks like that worked in production.
Yep.
And by the way, there is only prod.
Yeah. Throw an index on their kidneys, I guess. Problem solved. Well, has this helped?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like we almost always end our questions with, this is a tricky situation. This one doesn't sound terribly tricky unless you're going to tackle the root cause here of why does your company have a perverse incentive system around their vacation policy?
Yeah. I don't want to answer that question, though. I mean, well, I do. The answer is to save them money, right? But
it probably doesn't in the long run.
Yeah. Maybe then you have to show that. And that sounds like a bigger problem than saying, hey, can you please not come into work when you're feeling sick so you don't get us all sick?
Yeah. I actually do think it's perfectly fine to reach out to someone and say, hey, when you're sick, please don't come in. You don't even have to broach the subject of work from home or whether they have a good place to do so. Just say, hey, please don't come in when you're sick. I would appreciate it. I have a weak immune system and I don't want to be out for a week.
My humors are also out of balance, so yes. I'm vulnerable.
Exactly.
That's all you got to say. All right. I will read our next question. This is from another anonymous listener. Hey, I recently went through my company's annual review process. The review went pretty much as expected, with things that I was doing well and things that I could improve on. However, I received some negative feedback which I disagreed with. I asked for additional detail and examples of this, but neither my manager or his manager, our site lead, could give me any concrete examples. After some further discussion, they agreed to remove the comment from my review, but I'm now left wondering why this feedback was added in the first place if there were no examples they could give me. Their explanation for this was it was feedback for our team. Am I wrong, or is the annual performance review the wrong kind of place for that feedback? Should I be concerned that they actually have feedback for me but were unwilling to do so given my reaction? Is this enough of a red flag to maybe consider looking for a new job? So there was some feedback. They pushed back to get more detail on it, and the manager's answer was, oh, actually this is feedback for the whole team, not just for you. Is that your understanding here?
Yeah, that's how I read that.
Sounds weird.
Yeah, that sounds a little weird.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like I accidentally pasted that in there. I guess I should read these things before I share them with you.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like it is a reasonable expectation that your manager should have concrete examples for critical feedback they give you?
Only if they want you to fix it.
I mean, do you feel like they shouldn't be able to say anything to you unless they have an example of a specific incident or behavior or time?
Oh, not for me. My preference would be give me the feedback, even if you're not able to exactly describe an example. I just want to know what the feedback is. But I think that the best managers will take the time to collect the facts and share with you specific examples to make it crystal clear to you what this feedback is about. Yeah,
I feel like there's a balance in feedback in general between having proof and sharing impressions. And proof is probably more, not probably, it's more objective and there's a lot more of it, but it also means that the problem or the issue is such that it can be proven.
Right.
Where there's a lot of things that are fuzzy and have feelings or impressions associated with them. And I feel like you don't want to never hear that because you reject anything that is below a certain standard of proof. That means you miss out on valuable things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess this is a long-winded way of me saying that I agree with you, that it feels like your manager should be striving to provide proof for things because that is better feedback in general.
Yeah. I think,
but they're still allowed to say things without proof, I guess.
Sure. And I'm wondering like what really went down in this situation where you sit down, you read all this feedback, and then you're like, oh, tell me more about this. And your manager's like, oh, that was never there. It kind of feels to me like the manager I don't know. You could take the manager at face value and say, yeah, this really was team feedback and I gave it to everyone and don't worry about it. It's not actually specific to you, or you're not contributing to this particular problem on the team, but it just kind of slipped in there by default. That's possible. It's also possible that the manager realized that on on a deeper look, they didn't have concrete enough examples, or they questioned the source of the feedback. And I have been in an annual feedback session once where I had that kind of question. I saw some feedback from an anonymous peer and I said, can you give me some more detail on this? And my manager said, well, I could, but I'm going to give you some context here, or rather, I'm not going to give you all the details around this feedback, but I think you probably don't need to worry about that one too much. And I took that for granted, or I took that at face value and said, okay, they're questioning the source of the feedback. The person, maybe it was a one-off instance, or maybe there was a misunderstanding. And so I just kind of went on my merry way and ignored that one. And maybe that's what's happening here.
Yeah. I think it's also possible that they just are worried about conflict, maybe. Maybe they feel like this piece of feedback it's possible that they wilted kind of, instead of saying, this is what I think the situation is, and I know you're not going to like it. Maybe they were trying to kind of excuse it when they sensed your disagreement with it.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't be great. I mean, I don't think most people love conflict though, so I don't think it's unheard of. I feel like the more common thing would just be to not put it on there though, if you're worried about conflict around it. I feel like the much more common concern is people do not get feedback from managers until it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You're
so
doomed.
The question is, am I wrong, or is the annual performance review the wrong place for that kind of feedback? If the situation is accurate and this is literally feedback about the performance of the team, it sounds negative, that ended up on your performance review, yeah, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know quite what the consequence of that at your company is. It's possible that affects future things, or it's possible it doesn't, if it didn't affect the actual rating you ended up getting. But that seems weird. Should I be concerned that they actually do have feedback for me? I feel like I would push more on it. Yeah. I feel like I would push to see if it's something they think is there but are uncomfortable saying, or maybe don't have enough data to back up. Because I like you, I would want to know.
You're digging.
Even if you don't have like the number of lines of code I've written compared with the number last year, or I don't know, whatever the proof is, I feel like I would still want to know what they thought.
Yeah, I agree. Like, how did this get here? Or maybe it is just a problem with the team. I'd like to know more about that, and what can I do to help? But that's kind of a side conversation from your individual performance review, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I would dig into that a little bit. I wouldn't push it too far. If the manager says, look, don't worry about it, I'd probably say, fine. Probably you have other things you can worry about.
Yeah. Is it enough of a red flag to consider looking for a new job? Given the description here, I don't feel like it immediately is.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, if your rating was drastically different because of this feedback, then that seems pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was like...
But if it was just like, you're doing great, you have these things to work on, and you as a whole failed to deliver this project, and you're like, wait, that was everyone's project. I don't know. If it was like one piece of the larger puzzle instead of the thing that made you get a rating you didn't deserve,
yeah,
then I don't think I would be concerned enough to quit.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this too much either. It seems pretty innocuous.
Yeah, I think it could reflect the fact that giving good feedback is really hard, and
for sure
is not, I mean, we've talked before about the path to becoming an engineering manager, and it generally involves being a solid individual contributor, and then you step into this new role where you have to do vastly different things, and giving direct feedback on folks' performance is not a task that comes up in writing code very often, right? Like, and doing it in a way that they hear and understand and are willing to act on it instead of feel insulted, or that comes across directly enough that they understand it instead of soft pedaling it. Mm-hmm. That's a hard skill set, and it's possible your manager just doesn't have that yet.
Yeah, it's possible.
Which I think a lot of people are like that. I don't know that feels standard to me, not unheard of, I guess.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day here, they removed it from your review, so I would say probably don't worry about it. Like, good on them for reacting that way and saying, oh, you know what, this shouldn't be part of your review anyway, so let's just take it off. I'm going to take it off the official record, and now you're good to go. So to me, I think all's well that ends well here.
Yeah. You don't think the fact that it looked a little wonky is a cause for long-term concern at all, though?
No. I mean, if this happened every year, maybe, but I'm not seeing it. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah. I mean, it is a software job. This could be the only performance review they ever get at their 18-month tenure at this job.
That's true.
There could not be a next year. Yeah, I guess for me, this just underscores the importance of being clear and being clear about how unclear I am to make it less clear. If I have stuff that's really solid that I have lots of detail and proof on, then say that. And if I don't, but I have impressions, I think it's fair to say, hey, these are my impressions. This is what I feel and observe. Let's talk more about this. I guess maybe the performance review is the wrong time because you're enshrining things, right? There's some written document. So maybe the standard for general feedback is different than the standard of what goes on a performance review. I think one question I'm wondering about is whether the formal performance review is the right spot to put feedback you feel a little bit fuzzy about or a little bit vague about, if you should just stick to things that you feel really certain about and you feel like you have a really solid amount of evidence for, because this formal written document that presumably lives on somewhere and presumably has some effects. What's the responsibility for a manager? I think we already talked about how you should give feedback that's vague, don't give feedback that's vague. You should be willing to give feedback even if it's based on impressions, but should you include that kind of stuff in a performance review?
Yeah, that's a
Or should you keep it really, really just buttoned down?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm inclined to say that an annual performance review should be super buttoned down or buttoned up. I don't know which one.
Buttoned on?
Buttoned around.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the formal performance review should be as crisp and fact-filled as possible. And then you can also give verbal feedback, I think, that complements that formal review.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, that stuff lives on and you better be solid.
Okay. So, I mean, one of the thoughts was maybe they weren't super sure about it, so they threw it on and then pulled it off when they got pushed back. And you're saying, as a manager, maybe don't do that unless you're willing to back it up with lots of detail and examples.
That's what I think. And then have a verbal or offline discussion about the rest of the stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Well, have we answered this question?
I think so. I think you're safe. Good to go. I don't see any major red flags here, but keep an eye out for other managerial incompetence.
That's another question. What do you do? Like, is your only recourse to just quit and work somewhere where you have a better manager? Because it feels hard to have a conversation with your manager where you tell them, hey, I think you're bad at this. Please do this other thing instead.
Well, I think you could have a conversation where you lay out your desires for how you best receive feedback. And you could say, look, on my formal performance review, I want positive on
my formal performance review, please only include good things about me.
I guess that is true. I mean, you do want that.
Please give me the best rating. The end.
I mean, you could say like, look, on my annual review, I want to see very concrete, clear-cut feedback. And then, but in person, don't be afraid to share with me these off-the-cuff things that you've heard or the impressions you've had. I'd love to talk to you about those, and maybe together we can work on them. And I would just spell that out for your manager, and that's something I think a manager can adapt to.
Yeah. So you be clear in your feedback to your manager.
Your feedback.
That's what it sounds like you're saying. Okay, I can get behind that.
All right. You can button that up.
Yeah, and then I will button it down, and then I will button it inside out, because sometimes I wear clothes inside out on accident. And the fact that I'm buttoning it inside out, I guess, isn't enough of a signal to me.
Where can people do if they'd like their own questions buttoned up?
They can go to softskills.audio and click the Ask a Question button, and we will review it and answer it someday. Thank you so much to all the people who are submitting questions. We really appreciate it. We enjoy reading them. We learn stuff from talking about them, and they fuel the show. So thank you for doing that.
Yep, thank you.
All right, catch you next week.